Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing a requested video where I'm going to be sharing my favorite books with you guys. I'm so excited for this video because my favorite books are my favorite books ever. These are mostly going to be middle grade or children's and YA books because I define a favorite book as something that has stuck with me throughout my short life, like my 16 years of living. These are books that have stuck with me. These are books that I do annual rereads of. These are books I will never forget and that I recommend to literally everyone. So I'm going to start with the books that I don't have physical copies of, and then I'm going to go to the books I do have physical copies of because I like, these are books I get for my birthday. These are books I get for holidays because these are my favorite books, and people know that because I am like always telling people to read them. So to start, any Abby Jimenez book. I have read every single one of her books, and I have started reading them like last year. I've only like read them recently, and every single one of her books has been so good. So overall, as an author, just all of her books are amazing. I will reread them. They're great adult romances, and I mean, she's just such a great author. So her books I recommend to everyone if you're looking for a good romance. Then we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a YA romance, fake dating, enemies to lovers, all the great tropes. It is so good. Wes is literally one of my favorite love interests of all time, after Aaron Warner, of course, but literally such a good YA romance. My favorite YA romance ever, and I don't think anyone has ever read this book and disliked it. Everyone I've seen read this book literally loves it, and for good reason. Next is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read so many of her books and I love them all, but this one is my favorite. I love the way it's written. I love the main character. It's just so good, and I bet it would be even better in audiobook. I read it the physical copy, but it's just an amazing story. It's a adult woman's fiction, I believe, and literally amazing. Like, Taylor Jenkins Reid is such a good author. Then we have The Raven Boys by Maggie. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'll put it up there, but yeah, The Raven Boys. Literally such a good book. It is a YA fantasy book, I believe, and it's multiple POVs. The story is so good, and it has such a good plot, but it's the characters that make this one of my favorite books. The characters are just so amazing. They all have such personality, and like, it's just such a good YA fantasy book. And then we have The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and this is my favorite one in the trilogy and one of my favorite YA fantasy books. The romance, the setting, the plot, everything about this book is so good. The whole series is such a good series, but this book is like one of my favorites. Like, when I reread this series, I will reread this book over and over. So good. Then we have Nothing But Trouble by Jacqueline Davies. No, Nothing But Trouble by Jacqueline Davies. This is a YA fiction book, or maybe it's a middle grade fiction book about these two girls who live in this small town, and they love to do like pranks, like these elaborate pranks. It is such a funny book and such like a good book. It like has like such, like, the characters like go through so much development during the book. I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to these characters. I have read this book over and over. I love it so much as a middle grade. It's one of my favorite middle grade books, of course, and it's an amazing read. Next we have another one of my favorite middle grade books. This is Echo by Pam Munaz Ryan. This is one of those books where you're getting a bunch of multiple POVs set at different times in history, and at the end all the stories converge. No, not in different times in history, in different places. like at the same time, and at the end of the book all their stories converge and you realize like how they're connected. And it is such a good book. Every single POV is written so beautifully. Every single story is so interesting. You never get bored. And at the ending, it's so interesting to see how all the stories converge. This is one of my favorite books ever, and I recommend it to everyone. And then we have Breakout by Kate Messner. This book is really interesting to me because it's written in like different letters, different podcasts, newspaper entries, drawings, diary entries. It's like a story told through different media, and that's what makes it so interesting. I feel like if the book was just written in like a normal way, it probably wouldn't have stuck out to me, but it's the way it was written that makes it so interesting. It's a middle grade book, and I think everyone should read it, not because of the plot, but because of the way it's written. It just makes it so fun to read. Then we have Counting Down With You by Tashi Buyan. This is a YA romance, and after Better Than the Movies, it's probably my favorite YA romance. It's a fake dating YA romance. The lead of the book is South Asian, and I feel like I can relate a lot to her. And it is just such a good book. The author addresses so many different topics in such a good way, and the love interest is just literally probably my third favorite ever. So yeah. Next, going into the books I do have physical copies of. First is Augie and Me by R.J. Palacio. I loved Wonder, but Wonder is not one of my favorite books. This book, however, the companion book to Wonder, which is about 3 different characters from Wonder. We have Julian, we have, I think, Charlotte, and who was the second one about? And then Christopher and Augie. And literally reading about these 3 people who we only get to see one side of in Wonder is such a good read, because you really learn about how seeing people from just one person's point of view doesn't give you everything. Now we're seeing their full stories. Julian was the bully in Wonder, but what was really going on in his life? Why was he like that? We just get to learn so much. This book is such a good read for anyone who read Wonder. If you loved Wonder, you have to pick up this book. And then we have my number 1 favorite book of all time, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. The plot, the way it is written, the different POVs, just the ending, everything about this book. YA historical fiction set during World War II, and I don't even know how to explain it. It's unique, it's heartbreaking, and it's such a good story. This should be a must read, like a requirement to read. It is an amazing book. I'm sure you've already heard of it. I'm sure you've heard great things about it. If you haven't picked it up already, this is your sign. You have to read this book. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, YA fantasy book, and one of my favorite YA fantasy books. The multiple POVs, every single character in this book is a found family trope. Every single character is just such an amazing character. The plot is amazing, the heist, and I'm sure you've already heard about this book too. If you're thinking about picking up a Leigh Bardugo book, skip Shadow and Bone and go directly to Six of Crows. You will not regret it. It's literally an amazing read. It might be a little confusing in the beginning, but once you get past the first couple of chapters, it is such a good book. And Crooked Kingdom is even better, the sequel. So it's just an amazing book. Next, we have 3 Times Lucky by Sheila Turnage, my favorite middle grade book ever. It is a small town mystery book about these 2 best friends who solve mysteries in their town. And the best thing about this book is the characters and the setting. It's set in the South, and the small town. I think it's in Alabama or Mississippi, and the small town setting is so enjoyable to read. The characters are amazing. This whole series is so good. It's such an underrated read too. It's literally a Newbery Honor Medal winner, but I feel like not a lot of people have read it, and I recommend this to everyone. Then we have another one of my favorite middle grade books, historical middle grade books, and this is Our Only May Amelia. It is set during 1899 in Washington. It is about this girl who is literally the only girl in their small village, and she has a bunch of brothers, and it's just about her story and their life, and it's funny, it's heartbreaking, and it's just an amazing read. Then we have Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. This is a YA book with a little bit of magical realism. I would recommend reading trigger warnings before you read the book, but it is so good. Just the main character's development during like the course of this book is amazing. The ending is absolutely heartbreaking. I think I just love sad books, but this one is especially sad, but it's just so nice to read, just like the development of the character, and it's a Groundhog Day book, meaning she relives the same day over and over, and it's how she starts noticing things about herself and things about the people close to her, and it's an amazing read. Then we have my favorite science fiction book ever is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I don't usually like science fiction books, but this is an amazing, if you've watched the movie, it doesn't come nearly as close to the book. I love the movie, but the book is just a different experience. The thing about the book that's so good and that's not included in the movie is that it's multiple POVs. It's narrated by not only Ender, but also his siblings. And you get to see not only Ender's point of view where he's in space training to fight the aliens, but also the state of Earth below, and how it's just an amazing book, and how his siblings are trying to control the state of Earth while there's this alien attack happening. Such a good book, my favorite science fiction. And if you're not into science fiction, you still have to pick up this book. Then we have The Candy Makers by Wendy Mass. Wendy Mass, as an author, I've read so many of her books and I've enjoyed all of them, but this one is my favorite. It's so good. And not only the setting, like in the candy store, is so amazing, but the plot is just so unique, and the way at the beginning you only get like one character's point of view, and then you see him like observing the other characters, and then halfway through the book you get the other character's point of view, and each person has their own secret, and you're learning about all of the characters' backstories, and it's just such an interesting book. It's an amazing middle grade book. Then we have Capture the Flag by Kate Messner. I've also read so many Kate Messner books. Breakout is also by her, one of my favorite books. This is such a good book. It's like about a heist, about these 3 kids who meet each other at the airport. It's an amazing read. The whole series is amazing, but this is my favorite one. It's a middle grade book, and if you love like mystery, if you like heists, this is an amazing read. Inside Out and Back Again by Tahana Lai. This is a book written in free verse about a girl who lives in Vietnam during the war, and she has all brothers, and it's about her journey, her whole family's journey, leaving the country, fleeing to America, living with a new family in a new state, and it's just an amazing read for anyone who wants to read a book about that time and about the struggles of the people, and in such a beautiful poetic way. It is, I think I read it first in 4th grade, and I have read it almost every year since then. It has stuck with me always, and it's just an amazing read. Of course, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This whole series is my comfort series. Percy is my comfort character. I don't even know what more I can say. This book has such a big fandom behind it, and for good reason. This series is amazing. If you love characters that mess up and are funny, and you don't even have to be into Greek mythology. You just have to enjoy reading about fantasy books that are still set in our world. This is the book for you. Murder Most Unladylike series by Robin Stevens. The first book is called Murder's Bad Manners. This is a Sherlock Holmes retelling with 2 girls. They stay at this boarding school in England, and they solve mysteries together. It's such a fun, this whole series, every every single book. None of the books have disappointed me in this whole series. The mysteries are always so surprising, and the way they solve them are so good. The characters go through such development throughout the series too. There's a little bit of romance. Everything about this series is amazing. If you're looking for a middle grade to YA mystery series, then this is the one you should pick up. Then we have Chicken Soup for the Soul by these authors, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and Amy Newmark. This is the 20th anniversary edition, but up on my top shelf, you can see them slanting down. Sorry about the state of my bookshelves, but I just took down a bunch of books for a bunch of videos. But I have a whole collection. I have Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul, Chicken Soup for the Girl's Soul, Chicken Soup for the Pet Lover's Soul. I have so many of these books. Pick up the one that seems right for you. It is a collection of stories about people who are going through different things. There are funny stories, there are sad stories, there are stories about people who are enduring hardships, people who learned important lessons. It is just so amazing. Even if you don't like all the stories, you are bound to find one that sticks with you. I have read numerous collections of this series, and I mean, they're all just so good. And they're just short stories, 2 to 5 pages at most. You can read one every single night before you go to bed, and this series. The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. My favorite middle grade mystery book, my favorite middle grade book. It's so short, you can read it so fast. It is just a brilliant book. The multiple POVs we're getting, the multiple reveals at the end. Everyone has a secret. Everyone's keeping things from each other. They all live in the same apartment building and are trying to fight for this inheritance. It's a brilliant book. It's an amazing book. And even your elementary or middle school sibling can read it too. It's amazing. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DeCamillo. Every single Kate DeCamillo book is amazing. Tale of Despero by Kate DeCamillo. I'm blanking. This is so bad. I know the name of the book. Kate DeCamillo, she has so many books. How am I forgetting this? I know you guys know what I'm talking about, the one with that one book that she has that is amazing too. And this is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. It is such a heartbreaking book, and I don't even know how to explain it. I think you can read it at any age. I think it's aimed toward middle grade, but even as an adult, you can read this book, and there's just so much to learn from this rabbit's journey. It is so unique, and I will never forget it. I read this when I was so young, and it stuck with me. It will stick with me forever. Finally, my favorite book, my favorite TV show, my favorite movie, my favorite characters, my favorite setting, The 100 Acre Woods, Winnie the Pooh. This is my special edition that I got for my birthday, and it is my most prized book. Winnie the Pooh can be read at any age, and there is so much to learn from the characters. I watched it as a kid and I enjoyed their antics. I watched it and read it as a middle schooler and still enjoyed their antics, still enjoyed all the characters. And now I'm reading it as someone who's a little bit older, and there's so much to learn from these books. All the characters are so different, yet they're all best friends, and they never leave anyone out. They're just such loving characters, and it's just such an amazing read. This is the book I will go to when I'm feeling sad, the book I will go to when I'm feeling happy. And if you have not read or watched Winnie the Pooh, you have to do it with your kids, with your sisters, brothers, by yourself. This is the book. That is all for my favorite books of all time. I'm sure as my reading journey continues, as I continue to discover new authors, new series, new books, this list will grow, but these books will always remain on the list. And I hope that you decide to pick one up and maybe find a new favorite book of your own. And if not, maybe you'll just discover an author that you enjoy or a genre that you enjoy. And just know that my opinions are obviously vastly different. Everyone's opinions will differ, but I hope you took something from this video, maybe enjoyed it. And if you want a part 2 or any other videos, let me know down below. And remember to like and subscribe for a new video every week.